Welcome to A Moment of Zen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Zen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, fintech, cannabis, and entertainment from the millennial mom's perspective. Here's your host, Zen Sams.
Hello, my amazing tri-state area. Welcome to our 171st episode. It's always such a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you for listening and interacting with me on social media. It truly makes it so worthwhile. I read all your comments. Please make sure to follow me at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X, not a Z. And also remember that all episodes of A Moment of Zen stream 24/7 on your home TV and Kathy Ireland worldwide. Of course, you can always find us on our YouTube channel at Zen Sams. In today's Going Deep segment brought to you by CO2 Lift, we're featuring Sarah Viebrock, a registered nurse specializing in aesthetics. She's the MedSpa Director at Austin Plastic Surgeon, specializing in aesthetic and liposuction procedures. She joins me to talk about the best liposuction procedures, the benefits of carbon dioxide therapy pre and post procedure, most importantly, how CO2 Lift is speeding up the healing and recovering process in dramatic ways. And we'll also get patient testimonials and reactions to the CO2 Lift products in real time. In the Hydration with Heart segment brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, today we're featuring Brooke Eby, a courageous, determined, beautiful young woman diagnosed with ALS back in March of 2022. She hopes to spread awareness to as many people as possible and laugh along the way. She's here to chat ALS, making a difference, and how she stays positive amidst a terminal illness. In the Discover Your Potential segment brought to you by Smart Pet Talk, today we're joined by contributor, podcaster, and regular co-host Anna Devere. Today she is joined by Jacqui Piñol, actress and founder of the Canine Condition. We're going to chat solutions and shed a light on the state of animal shelters in the U.S. today. Heartbreaking story. In the Express Scandal segment, we're featuring Imran Ansari of Idala Bertuna Kamens. He's going to be covering the Brian Kohberger murder trials. University of Idaho murder suspect Brian Kohberger may have been targeting one of the roommates at the off-campus house where 4 students were killed 2 years ago. And there are signs that his family had suspicions about his involvement before his arrest. This is according to a new bombshell book. Kohberger, 29, was targeting college senior Madison Mogan when he allegedly broke into the home on King Road in Moscow in the early hours of November 13th. Imran Ansari is going to break it all down for us. Journalist Howard Bloom suggests in his new book, When the Night Comes Falling, a requiem for the Idaho student murders, that this was all premeditated. Stay tuned for the Hydration with Heart segment brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut. Here to chat ALS, making a difference, and how to stay positive amidst a terminal illness. The amazing Brooke Eby. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, 100% pure coconut water. Imagine a drink that's nutrient-rich, powerfully refreshing, naturally sweet with no added sugars, not from concentrate, 0 additives, low in calories, absolutely no artificial flavors, and is so tasty that it will become your new favorite beverage. Enter Once Upon a Coconut, the absolute best tasting coconut water you will ever try. Available in 4 refreshing flavors, pure, chocolate, pineapple, and sparkling with energy. Do your taste buds a favor and pick up some today at onceuponacoconut.com.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Coming up next in our Hydration with Heart segment, brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut. Today, we're refeaturing my dear friend, Brooke Eby. She's a courageous, determined, beautiful young woman diagnosed with ALS back in March of 2022. She hopes to spread awareness of ALS to as many people as possible and laugh along the way, which she does. Although the mean survival time with ALS is shorter than we'd like, some people can in fact live much longer. Symptoms can begin in the muscles that control speech and swallowing, or in the hands, arms, legs, or feet. ALS, or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, is a progressive neurodegenerative disease that affects nerve cells in the brain and spinal cord. For about 90% of all cases, there's no known family history of the disease or presence of a genetic mutation linked to ALS. Only for about 5 to 10% of all cases, there is in fact a known family history of the disease, and this is often called familial ALS. Well, here to chat more and hear directly from patient herself, making a difference, how to stay positive amidst a terminal illness, is the amazing Brooke Eby. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Thank you so much for having me again. I love being back.
Oh, I love having you. You are such a ray of sunshine. Can you share your diagnosis and how it has evolved, and what is the current prognosis for you?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed over 2 years ago now. It was March of 2022. And at the time, they told me, I'd been having symptoms prior to that for 4 years, which is slower than they're used to seeing. So they said, you've been a slow progressor so far. We don't really expect that to change. So we're not going to give you any kind of timeline or time frame. We're just going to sort of track you and check in every 3 months. So since then, 2 years ago, since that diagnosis, I'm now in a wheelchair full time. My legs, pretty much for decoration at this point. My left arm is getting weaker, and then in the last couple months, I've seen a decline in my lungs, which is one of the scarier ones, but it basically means, like, because my diaphragm is so weak, like my core is so weak, I don't have a lot of power behind breathing and coughing and those types of things. So to me, quite a bit has changed in the last couple of years, and yet I'm still considered a slow progressor, which is just mind-blowing.
That's scary.
Yeah.
And I know studies to develop more treatments and a cure for ALS, many funded by the ALS Association, are ongoing around the world. In fact, scientists have made significant progress in understanding how the disease works, identifying biological indicators that can help diagnose and treat, but there's still so much work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
There is a lot of hope, but facing such a challenging prognosis, how do you find the strength to remain so positive and hopeful every day? I see you out there on social media with a great big smile on your face, making light of everything. You're full of life, smiling and seeming to be coping better than most in your situation. How important is mindset?
So after I got diagnosed, I was depressed for probably 2-3 months. And then after a couple months, I was like, this is kind of boring. Like, it's being sad for long periods of time. It's like, I don't know what to do with this. And so I think my personality just started to sort of creep back in as I got used to everything. And for me, that's always meant jokes, like just treating everything with humor, even if it's the most serious thing in the world. I just have never been able to take anything seriously. So that's helped me quite a bit in that I can, laugh at some of the things happening to me because, I'm 35 now. When you're 35 with a disease that's taking away your ability to do very normal things, like sometimes all you can do is laugh. But I'm also really lucky in that I have, really close family, really great group of friends. Like, I have those building blocks, I think, that allow me to just focus on the ALS problem as opposed to worrying about, how am I going to pay for this medication and how am I going to get from point A to point B. Like, I have a support system in place. I also think social media has helped quite a bit. Like, I think a lot of people see the negativity on social media and you see mean comments and how it can tear people down. But sharing my story has really, one, it's desensitized me, and I feel like I can talk about ALS and not, get depressed just by talking about it. Like, I think I can now have conversations about really hard things, and it doesn't make me sad. It's just, conversation and learning. But I've also seen such strong support from internet strangers. Like, it's unbelievable. If you look through my comments, I don't know any of these people, and they're cheering me on day in and day out.
And as Charles Lindbergh said, success is not measured by what a man accomplishes, but by the opposition he has encountered and the courage with which he has maintained the struggle against overwhelming odds. And that's what you're doing. And I'm really, really proud to see you day in, day out, keep a positive mindset, whether you're getting help from social media or your friends or family. The best medicine for this is mindset, and you've got it. Now, you continue to be an incredible advocate for ALS awareness and fundraising. What drives you to keep pushing forward?
Yeah, I think what drives me, it's interesting. I actually think that it's easier to want to fight for other people than it is for yourself. And I don't know if that's like a psychological thing or if that's like a woman caretaking type feeling, but I sometimes will get a little bit apathetic, and then I'll talk to one of my friends who has ALS or someone in my support group who has ALS, and it sort of recharges me to be like, okay, this isn't, you're not fighting for you. Like, you're fighting for an entire population of people who, have historically been forgotten, and ALS can silence you. Like, you can lose your voice, you can lose, the ability to go out of your house. So many people are just fighting this disease in behind closed doors. And so I've just decided to keep being as loud as I can and try to be a voice for people who have lost theirs.
And outside of the wheelchair, is there anything that you find yourself struggling to do on your upper body?
Everything. It's like, it's so bizarre because I watch videos of myself, a few years ago, and I'm like, I took everything for granted. Like, waking up and getting out of bed now takes me like 10 minutes, which I guess doesn't sound that long, but compared to 10 seconds, it feels a lot longer. Going to the bathroom, I like dread doing because you have to transfer out of your wheelchair onto the toilet or into the shower to go shower. Like, there's just so many things that it's a production. Everything's a production now. So I've been requiring more and more help these days.
Well, thank you for being so transparent. And well, you have a great support system, so I know you've got help there. Now let's chat available treatments and therapies for ALS, and what does the research look like, and what can people do to help?
Yeah, it's hard to talk about the research from the patient side because I think on the medical side, if you talk to, the scientists and the doctors and the researchers, they're constantly working. They're constantly learning and understanding more about this disease. But from the patient side, it hasn't really translated yet. So for us, we still have the same, only 2 approved medications. We actually had 3, I think, the last time I spoke with you, and then 1 got pulled back because it was found to be ineffective. So we're down to 2 medications. Both are expected to extend your lifespan by, a few months or a percentage of time, which, isn't all that exciting, isn't much to hang your hat on. So from the patient side, really nothing's changed. I think if you were to talk to the researchers, they'd probably say a lot has changed in the last couple of years, and more and more trials are happening, more attention is being given. But all I can really see is, when I go to the doctor, they say there's nothing else we can do for you. So the way I've been approaching it is really through fundraising. I think that it's an underfunded disease for relative to how quick and how terminal it is. So my goal has just been raising money, and I switch off which organizations I give money to just to diversify our luck a little bit. But yeah, I think money is like the best way I can control at this point.
When you speak to your doctors and you ask them, what is my timeline? What do they say to you?
I don't really ask them that because I think unless it were under a year, I don't think I would want to know. I think now it's more, just tracking my progress. I'm sure they could give me a timeline if I asked, but unless it's imminent, I don't want to know.
And whenever, those conversations will happen naturally when they're supposed to happen.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it's all about fundraising and really trekking forward to get as much research funding, as much money to fund the research so
Right.
that we can make some progress. Now, can you share some of the most memorable moments or achievements from from this advocacy work over the past 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many highlights. I wish, eventually I'll make some sort of highlight reel of everything that's gone on. But a year ago, we did a fundraiser. So May is ALS Awareness Month. So for the last 2 years, I've done a post a day in May, just answering people's questions and, answering comments. And I wrap it up by doing a fundraiser. And last year, the fundraiser, I think because it was like the first time I had done one, we raised very, very quickly. I think we hit 70K. And then we had hit 70. And then a stranger reached out and said they would match it if we hit 100, which is mind blowing. It was just a stranger from the internet. I was not even sure if it was real or not. But as soon as we hit 100, they matched it. So that was like one of the craziest experiences. And we have a fundraiser going right now too, although I think second time's a little less sparkly than the first. Also, I've gotten to throw out first pitches. I've gotten to speak at a bunch of events. Like, there's been a lot of fun experiences that I wouldn't have had without ALS.
I definitely have seen all of them, and
some bad pitches in that lineup.
No, you did great. Now, are you participating in any clinical trials for ALS treatment?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was diagnosed 4 years into symptoms, which is on the slower side, although ALS is very hard to diagnose. But you can only join trials if you're under 2 years of symptoms. So by the time I was diagnosed, I was already ruled out of trials. But they started doing something called expanded access, like compassionate care, I think was the law that was put into place. And that means that patients who are beyond that 2-year mark can still get access to the trial drug. Their data just won't go back into the trial. So right now I am on a trial drug. I've been on it for a year. I don't know that it's doing anything, but sometimes it feels good just to be proactive and doing something.
Then nothing, right?
So not so much trials. I am participating in some research studies just so they can learn more about what's going on with ALS, try to figure out why it happens, how it happens, how quickly, like why certain people are quicker than others. There's just so much unknown.
Yeah, without a doubt. How has your perspective on life and time changed since your diagnosis, and what lessons have you learned that you'd like others to understand?
There's so many. I think before I was diagnosed, I was kind of like confused, I think, at life. I was just really focused on work. I didn't really understand my purpose. I was just sort of going through the motions, but when you don't have a purpose, like, it's almost frustrating because you don't really know what you're charging towards. I'm like, I guess I'm just trying to get promoted at work. I didn't really know what I was working for or working towards. And then once I was diagnosed, I think everything kind of fell into place. Like, now I understand what I want to achieve in the next few years. And a lot of that has to do with driving awareness and driving money towards ALS. So I think it's mostly like perspective, and then also how I spend my time. I want to spend as much time with people that I love, so family and friends, and don't stress yourself out too much with things that don't matter, is like usually what I'm telling my friends quite a bit these days.
Those are wise words, my dear. And
Yeah.
the tests we face in life's journey are not to reveal our weaknesses, but to help us discover our inner strengths. And you can only know how strong you are when you strive and thrive beyond the challenges you face. And that's what you're doing. So
Yeah.
this is very telling. Now, how do you manage your symptoms? I know you don't maintain your independence anymore, but how do you manage your symptoms?
Yeah, so now I have a caregiver who comes and helps me. Really, the things I need help with are like places where I feel unsafe. So like transferring into the shower, pretty much anything in a bathroom scenario, I think is the most dangerous for people with limited mobility, because like everything is sharp and hard and there's like no safe place to fall in a bathroom. So she helps me quite a bit, getting in and out of the shower, and also just like helping me take care of myself. I think she takes better care of me than I think I've ever taken care of me. Like, she makes sure I'm eating constantly. She's making sure that I'm like putting on lotion, like little things that, just you sort of put by the wayside when you're busy all day. Like sometimes I would be like, oh, I don't think I ate lunch today. And she's like, oh my God. So it's just like a lot of taking care of me tasks.
Well, I love that you have that.
Yeah.
And finally, we are almost at the end of this interview, and I've enjoyed speaking with you, and thank you for being so transparent and honest and humble. What advice do you have for someone receiving an ALS diagnosis?
My first piece of advice is don't Google anything, because that was the first thing that I did. I remember I'd Google it and I'd read like the 2 bullet points, and then I would close out the window and be like, oh my God, it's just, Google isn't sympathetic, it's just factual. So there's no need, you don't need to look at Google. Now I think there's a resource called Roon, ROON, where a bunch of people from the ALS community, so like patients, doctors, researchers, caregivers, are all answering questions. So if you have any questions about ALS, you can go on to Roon, and then there's like I was just diagnosed guide. What do I need to know? And they'll take you through it. And it's people like me, people, like my doctors who are going through it, and I think can hopefully be a little bit more comforting than Google can. And then find a support group is like my advice to anyone going through anything in life.
You are saying the same thing that everyone else in your similar predicament, in their own unique similar predicament, has said. It's always
Wow.
about community. It's always about mindset. And it's about staying positive and fundraising, because you have to remain active with your cause.
Yeah.
We are at the end of this interview, my dear. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure chatting with you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
All the energy in the universe is evenly present in all places at the same time. We don't get energy, we release energy. And the triggering mechanism to release energy is desire. When you have a strong desire to do something, you will always have the energy to do it. That was our Hydration with Heart segment, brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut. That was the incredible, the beautiful Brooke Eby. Check her out on the gram at Limp Bruise Kit, LIMPBROOZKIT. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, 100% pure coconut water. Imagine a drink that's nutrient-rich, powerfully refreshing, naturally sweet with no added sugars, not from concentrate, 0 additives, low in calories, absolutely no artificial flavors, and is so tasty that it will become your new favorite beverage. Enter Once Upon a Coconut, the absolute best tasting coconut water you will ever try. Available in 4 refreshing flavors: pure, chocolate, pineapple, and sparkling with energy. Do your taste buds a favor and pick up some today at onceuponacoconut.com.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by CO2 Lift. As we age, our skin loses moisture and elasticity, causing wrinkled skin. You can reverse this aging process with CO2 Lift. CO2 Lift utilizes the powerful benefits of carbon dioxide to lift, tighten, and regenerate your skin. This simple, painless at-home carboxytherapy treatment is scientifically proven to reverse the aging process. You will see reduction in wrinkles, increase in luminosity, and improve pigmentation, sagging, skin tone, and radiance. For more information or to order CO2 Lift, go to CO2Lift.com.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up next in just a few minutes in a Going Deep segment brought to you by CO2 Lift. Today we're featuring Sarah Viebrock, a registered nurse specializing in aesthetics. She is the MedSpa Director at Austin Plastic Surgeon, and she specializes in aesthetic and liposuction procedures. Now, liposuction is one of the top 3 most requested aesthetic procedures. In recent statistics, it overtook breast augmentation as most popular cosmetic surgery. The contouring procedure, which uses suction to remove excess fat, accounted for 15% of cosmetic surgeries performed worldwide. Changing trends are also part of a global surge in aesthetic medicine, which saw over 30 million surgical and non-surgical procedures carried out in 2021. And that's a jump of about 20% from the previous year. Who would have thought that lipo would end up being so popular? Sarah Viebrock joins me now to talk about the best liposuction procedures, the benefits of carbon dioxide therapy, pre and post procedure, most importantly, how CO2 Lift Pro is speeding up the healing and recovering process in dramatic ways. We'll also get patient testimonials and reactions to CO2 Lift in real time. Welcoming now to the show is the amazing Nurse Sarah Viebrock. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk about one of my favorite topics, the CO2 Lift mask, and how we combine it with body procedures, just like you alluded to.
So let's dive right in. When did you first hear of CO2 Lift products? And in your own words, can you describe how carboxytherapy functions on a cellular level? And what does it actually help your patients achieve?
Absolutely. So let me speak first to how it actually works, because I think then that will make sense to how we heard about it. Carboxytherapy, or the CO2 Lift mask, uses carbon dioxide. And why that's important is it's basically going to trick your body or your tissue, wherever we're applying this mask, into feeling like it's starving for oxygen, right? Oxygen is so important for many things: healing, getting nutrients to our cells, all of the above, right? So if we can temporarily trick our cells or our tissue into thinking that it's starving for oxygen, then our body's going to say, hey, we need more oxygen, right? So it's going to obviously open up those capillaries, which is what feeds our blood, right? Our blood vessels, they feed our blood to the tissue, and it's going to send fresh, oxygen-rich blood to that tissue wherever we applied the mask, which is going to do a couple of things. It's going to speed up healing. It's going to bring the nutrients that we need. It's going to help to close a wound if we're applying it over a wound. It's going to hydrate. It does all these amazing, incredible things. So that's where we, heard about this. Dr. Franco, who I work for at Austin Plastic Surgeon, actually started incorporating this into his liposuction cases, his high definition lipo cases, especially. In aesthetics, we're always trying to be at, the top of what's new and cutting edge. And the CO2 Lift mask really helps to decrease downtime, because patients don't want downtime, right? Like we want to
it's one of the important questions. Downtime is at the forefront of everybody's brain. And what you're saying, it makes total sense. Carboxytherapy, if you increase the presence of wound repair factors and growth factors, that helps cells turn over faster. So the science is the science is the science. Now, the healing process is key. So let's go back to what you just alluded to. How does CO2 Lift Pro affect the recovery process?
Exactly. So, and like you said, that's what the patients are looking for. They want to look better, but they want to speed up the healing, right? So anything we can do to make our tissue healthier, speed up that healing. And that's what we're doing with the CO2, right? So we're getting fresh oxygen blood, which is what that means is we're getting more nutrients. We're getting more collagen made, right? We're getting faster wound healing. And the fresh blood is also removing waste from the area, right? So literally by increasing nutrients, getting more waste taken away, we're speeding up the healing process, decreasing bruising, decreasing redness, decreasing inflammation, and just literally cutting that healing time, I would say almost in half.
I love it. I love it. And the research is there. This is clinically verified and clinically researched. CO2 Lift Pro and even CO2 Lift, the consumer one, definitely improves that local metabolism, and elimination of waste products within the body is key to what backs it up, and inflammation ensues. So this helps the body heal localized damage, such as scars and bruising, so much faster. So I love that you're applying it to these localized areas other than the face, which is the most common go-to use case for CO2 lift. But now we're seeing this incorporated pre and post surgical procedures, which I find fascinating. Now, what are the most common procedures you combine CO2 Lift Pro with?
So we started out incorporating it in those liposuction cases, the HD lipo, even some of Dr. Franco's BBLs, but we saw how it was really decreasing the bruising, decreasing the downtime. So I was like, I got to get in on this. So for me, lower body is my jam. I treat a ton of cellulite. I do a procedure called Aval. That is a minimally invasive one-time treatment for cellulite. And then I also do a ton of skin tightening, especially with the weight loss revolution. We're seeing so much increased skin laxity. And a lot of times we're doing it what we call a luxury legs procedure, where I'm combining Aval with skin tightening and then finishing that with that CO2 lift mask. Because when we're doing these minimally invasive procedures, we have a little more bruising, a little more inflammation. It's non-surgical, but it's still minimally invasive. So the patients, when they hear non-surgical, they expect low downtime, right? So as soon as I started combining this, their downtime is significantly decreased and the patients are happier.
I love happy patients. So let's chat Aval, because you mentioned that and that's piqued my interest. So we know that liposuction won't treat cellulite. Cellulite is a complex problem, and pockets of fat are only one contributing factor. Liposuction cannot alter the fibrous connective bands that, along with the fat, cause the dimples and bumps associated with cellulite. And it's important to note that liposuction can actually worsen the appearance of loose, saggy skin. So for the best results, the skin in the treatment area, and I learned this from Dr. Franco, should be firm, smooth, and relatively elastic. And using liposuction to remove fat from an area of the body with looser, saggy skin can leave the skin looking even more wrinkly. So the next recommended step is Aval. What does this procedure involve on a scientific level? And when you combine it with CO2 Lift Pro, what are the difference in results with patients who have not used it?
Yeah, absolutely. You're speaking my love language. I love to talk everything ovule and cellulite. This is really how I differentiated myself as a provider. We know that 90% of women have cellulite, and they've oftentimes been burned by a procedure in the past that didn't work because we didn't truly understand it, right? So now we know, just like you said, that cellulite is caused by those fibrous bands pulling on the skin and creating that dimple. So if we don't go in and release the band, physically actually cut the band, then the skin won't smooth out. And like you said, removing excess fat with liposuction actually makes skin laxity worse. And I would say the majority of my patients that I'm treating for cellulite also have skin laxity. So that's where what we call luxury legs comes in, where we're treating not only the skin laxity, but also the cellulite, because most of us have both. It's a one-time treatment that we do in office for the Aval. We numb you locally. I go in with the Aval wand and actually cut those bands. And then the best part is the verification. So I can go through with the hook on the wand and make sure that I got all those bands that are tethering your skin down. And then the best part, like you said, is we use the CO2 lift mask immediately after. So I'm literally applying it on the booty and the thighs, everywhere that we're treating. We leave it on for at least 45 minutes to an hour. And then I send those patients home with 2 more because I want them to do at least a series of 3. And the feedback that I've gotten from my patients that I've incorporated this with is I have almost no bruising. I mean, that's incredible when we're talking cutting and releasing bands in the butt and thighs. So it's been a total game changer. Not only do they have a smooth booty, but they can get in that bikini even faster.
Oh, I love this. This is so validating. Now, in parallel, I'm going to pivot a little bit. Both CO2 lift and hyperbaric oxygen therapy utilize oxygen in their respective processes. This we know. In CO2 lift, carbon dioxide is applied to the skin, and the skin is expected to absorb the CO2 and, in the process, release oxygen, potentially, but we know now factually, improving skin health. And in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, pure oxygen is administered at increased atmospheric pressure. Now, this higher pressure allows the body to absorb more oxygen into the bloodstream, which can be beneficial for various medical conditions. Now, the common thread between the two is the focus on oxygenation of tissues, albeit through different methods. So comparing CO2 lift to a hyperbaric oxygen chamber suggests that there may be some similarities in how both treatments incorporate the use of oxygen. So the CO2 lift product has in fact been compared by even Dr. Hoyos and a lot of other fellows in your practice, in your field, to this hyperbaric oxygen chamber. Can you speak to this in your own experience with patients?
Absolutely. In the world of aesthetics, we are so excited for anything new and cutting edge. We mentioned that earlier, right? And we've used hyperbaric oxygen therapy for a while to speed up wound healing, to speed up the recovery process, which is everything we've already touched on, right? And just like you said, it does that via oxygen with increased pressure, but it's not convenient, right? Like the patient has to go and sit in a chamber for minimum 45 minutes, often up to 2 hours, sometimes longer, right? It costs quite a bit. It's not cost effective. They can't do it in their own home typically, unless they've got their own chamber at home, which is rare. So they're both increasing oxygen, right? We already talked on why that's helpful. But with different components, right? So one is a topical mask using CO2. The other one is increased pressure, which is going to help you absorb more oxygen. So I totally agree. And that's what we've seen with the patients. And with a patient maybe that was a little bit slower with healing that we would have sent to a hyperbaric oxygen chamber in the past, now we can just apply the CO2 mask and send them home with more of them to do in the comfort of their own home. Way more cost effective, so much easier, and the results are incredible. Just like you said, this has been scientifically studied. We see the increased oxygenation. We see the sped up healing. We see it with, right before our eyes. So it's totally mind blowing. I would say that it's very comparable, but in my opinion, better because it's
even better.
It's so much easier.
Yeah, and I'm actually not quite certain statistically if the hyperbaric oxygen chamber in fact contributes and aids the neoangiogenesis, because I mean that's something extremely localized to the mask application. So you're right. I think that this takes number one.
Absolutely. Like you said, it's exactly where you need it, right? We're going straight to the source.
Yep. Well, we are officially out of time. Can't wait to listen to those patient testimonials. I think we should roll up our sleeves and see what they have to say. What do you think we do it?
I can't wait. Thank you
All right.
so much for having me, Zen. This has been incredible.
All right, let's head into the practice and see what Sarah's patients have to say about the CO2 Lift Pro mask. Let's dive right in.
My name is Daniela, and I'm 23 years old.
My name is Cecilia. I'm 30 years old, and I got Vivace treatment done.
I visited Sarah here at Austin Plastic Surgeon to address some cellulite that I had on my butt and back of my thighs, basically my whole life. So I did the Aval treatment here with her.
What's the main reason you visit Nurse Sarah at Austin Plastic Surgeon? And in your opinion, what's the most important consideration when you evaluate skincare treatments?
So I always go to Sarah because she really knows my skin. I've been going to her for a while now. And so I like that whenever she suggests something to me, it's really customized to my skin.
In terms of general skincare, I really look for something that's rejuvenating, something that's going to hydrate my skin, keep my skin nice and glowy, something that's really soothing and just feels nice on the skin.
I really want to invest in products and treatments that are really actually going to work for me. And she is the best person because she's not going to, sell me something that's not going to be useful for me or my skin type. It's really about getting to my goals, and Sarah definitely does that.
Have you ever heard of carboxytherapy for skin rejuvenation before? If so, what do you know about it?
I had never heard about carboxytherapy for skin rejuvenation before, so I was really excited to try it out for the first time.
So I didn't hear about it until Sarah recommended it to me. I was a little bit nervous going into Vivace since I have very sensitive skin and I am prone to a lot of redness, and I don't want to come out of the clinic looking crazy for a long period of time. And so she highly recommended it, and I'm very, very happy that she did since my results were very, very quick and very, very nice right after my treatment.
What were you expecting from this CO2 Lift treatment?
So really what I was expecting, just to help with a little bit of the redness, maybe a little bit of the soothing aspect of it.
I knew from Aval treatments from other patients that sometimes it could cause pretty intense bruising. So I was hoping it would help with that.
How has using the CO2 Lift mask before or after your procedure improved your recovery and results?
It just made it a lot easier. It was really nice that I could get the Vivace done, which is microneedling, so it can be a little bit spicy in certain areas. It was really nice that she put that on immediately after my Vivace treatment, and I had it on for a while, and then I was able just to peel it off and go on from my day to day.
Using the CO2 mask after my Aval treatment was absolutely game-changing. When I came into the treatment, I was a little apprehensive just because I had heard that other patients had really intense bruising that lasted anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. But for me, that absolutely was not the case. I used 3 treatments of the carboxy treatment after my Aval, and I only had bruising that lasted a couple days.
Even hours later in the day, even the next day, I noticed that I didn't really have as many noticeable fine lines, especially in this area. I was just a lot more plump and a little bit more shiny. So it was a really, really good treatment.
How does the mask feel on your skin?
The mask is really, really nice. It has this really nice soothing and cooling effect. Because it's kind of a jelly consistency, you can either pack it on to areas that you need a little bit more treatment, or if you're trying to make it spread a little bit more, you can make it a little thinner and get really nice results that way too.
It feels so nice. It's honestly really cool. I think it's something that people don't really talk about. It gets a little bit puffy and it's almost like a gel consistency. So it feels really nice. It's nice and cooling. And then you can just kind of peel it off when you're done.
What are the most apparent results after your CO2 Lift treatment?
By far, the most apparent and impressive results I had after my CO2 treatment was the absolutely minimal bruising that I had after my Aval treatment. I was really apprehensive going in just because I had seen some patients have really intense bruising, and that for me was not the case at all with the CO2 Lift.
Oh my gosh, I had 0 redness after Vivace, which is crazy for me. I have very sensitive Irish skin, so I had no redness after I peeled off the mask. Soothing, it was really, really nice in my skin. I could touch my skin and there was no sensitivity sensitivity. And then again, I was just very plump with it. So my skin just looked really good. It looked like I got done with having a facial rather than having like a microneedling session.
Is this a mask you would use again for post-treatment healing?
For everything, yes, absolutely. Anything that's going to cause me to get red, anything that's going to cause a little bit of sensitivity on my skin.
I would absolutely use this mask after any treatment here at Austin Plastic Surgeon. And I'm also kind of excited to try it on my face, either on a weekly or monthly basis, just to see how it promotes skin rejuvenation, a glowing skin, and a nice hydrated skin.
That was our Going Deep segment brought to you by CO2 Lift. That was the awesome nurse Sarah Viebrock, MedSpa Director at Austin Plastic Surgeon. You can check her out directly on the gram at Sarah Injects Austin. That's Sarah with an H. You can go directly on their website at austinplasticsurgeon.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by CO2 Lift. As we age, our skin loses moisture and elasticity, causing wrinkled skin. You can reverse this aging process with CO2 Lift. CO2 Lift utilizes the powerful benefits of carbon dioxide to lift, tighten, and regenerate your skin. This simple, painless at-home carboxytherapy treatment is scientifically proven to reverse the aging process. You will see reduction in wrinkles, increase in luminosity, and improve pigmentation, sagging, skin tone, and radiance. For more information or to order CO2 Lift, go to CO2Lift.com.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Your Home TV with Kathy Ireland and their channel partners. Head to yourhometv.com for free, family-friendly programming, streaming 24/7.
The Kelly Williams Show is brought to you by Serendipity Yacht Cruises and Events. Tune in and turn on your happy. Kelly Williams is full of energy and incredible guests. Watch her anytime, free programming on Your Home TV network, and do follow her on social media for a chance to win monthly prizes. Check out The Kelly Williams Show on yourhometv.com.
Tune in to A Moment of Zen, Saturday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up next in the Discover Your Potential segment brought to you by Smart Pet Talk. Today we're joined by contributor, podcaster, and regular co-host Anna Devere. Today she is joined by Jacqui Piñol. Jacqui is a full-time actress that you may recognize as Rio Morales in the Spide-Man video game series for Sony PlayStation, the TV series Bosch, and American Horror Story. That's just to name a few. But today she'll be joining us to chat all about a different passion of hers, dogs. This month, she's releasing The Canine Condition, a DOGumentary series that is grassroots journey around the U.S. to show her audience how to improve the lives of homeless, abandoned, and neglected doggies and investigate the cause of dog homelessness. They're going to join me to chat all about The Canine Condition, offer solutions, and shine a light on the state of animal shelters across the U.S. today. Welcoming now to the show are Jacqui Piñol and Anna Devere. Welcome, superstars.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
So excited to have you on, Jacqui. It's an honor to have you with us today. And I have to say, your devotion towards this particular topic, doggies, is clear, but I know you're also a full-time actress. So I'm curious as to what unlocked this passion for canine treatment and homelessness in your time away from the cameras. Can you take us back to the point of inspiration behind your foundation, The Canine Condition, and your upcoming docuseries? What launched you on this heartfelt journey?
Yes, it always takes one dog. And for any animal lovers out there and pet parents, you can probably relate to the first time there was a dog or a cat or sometimes a guinea pig that drives you in a certain direction. And for us, it was a doggie that we found on the streets. And you always go the route of, okay, it must have a home. Somebody's missing this dog. Let's take it to the shelter. Let's see if it could be scanned for a microchip. You know, there's steps that you take to see where we put up signs on local posts in the area. And nobody claimed this dog. So we turned her into the shelter thinking her family would go find her, and they didn't. And after 2 weeks, I kept checking in with the shelter. She's a beautiful Great Dane Pit Bull type dog mix, long, lean, tall. She's just so regal and beautiful. And nobody came to claim her. So the shelter did warn me that according to the rules of the shelter system, and it is, you know, across the United States, when they are full, they have to start euthanizing for space because they can't say no to any more incoming animals. And I didn't know anything about that. So to make the long story short, I said, no way. If nobody comes, can I get her? And they go, you'd have to adopt her. And we weren't ready to adopt. I mean, look, it's a big commitment. You can't just, it's a family member. You're making a 14, 15-year commitment or more. So we found a rescue organization, found out about fostering, and knowing that a rescue organization will take care of the pet and do the vetting while you take care of the dog until it finds a home. And through that journey, she found her home with us. She had me at hello. And when it was time to do adoptions, we were like, no, she's not going anywhere. And so
this warms my heart. You're amazing. And I love what you're doing. It's so important because statistically, approximately over 3 million dogs enter animal shelters nationwide. This is every year, but only around 2 million of those dogs end up getting adopted. And we all know, just as you highlight, what these animal shelters are about. They're not the greatest or kindest environment. So it's so great to see people like you shining a real light on this and offering solutions. Now, I know Anna has some questions, so I'll hand it off to you, Anna.
Yeah, your story is remarkable. I know we're going to dive into it, but I just kind of wanted to know, like, after you adopted, it's Dublin, right? The dog. After you adopted Dublin, how did you know, and when did you know you were going to have to do this docu-series? Like, what took you out of just adopting a pet and realizing, okay, we need to highlight this entire situation?
So it was the day I went to pick her up at the shelter. We walked by all the kennels, and it's loud, cacophonous, barking sounds, and there's all these beautiful, souls staring at you, thinking, "Are you coming for me?" And I was going to get her. I was very excited. And as we walked out, and I just still have that like a scene playing in my head, walking out of that shelter, not knowing if all those dogs would get adopted or even make it out ever, right? That was troubling to me. And although we saved her and she has a great life and is now 14 and, a little bit of arthritis and still wobbling around, I couldn't sleep at night sometimes thinking, is this happening everywhere? And I started to look on, how social media prompts you for things. I mean, it's not like, oh, I just happened to come across this. So I must have been so involved in looking at pet things online. And I saw a post from a shelter in Georgia that was over capacity by 200 animals at the time. And they said, if we don't get down to capacity, which is 79, everybody knows what happens. And I thought, oh my goodness. My husband was like, listen, you can't save them all. You can't go adopt them all out and find fosters. Maybe you should do something bigger, something along the lines of what you love to do and are interested in. And I was interested in filmmaking at the time as an actor. And that's what prompted the idea, like, oh my goodness, let's do a documentary. Let's travel around the country. Who's helping these dogs? Let's go film them. And that was
wow. Well, it seems like this journey has become truly educational for you. And I know that breeder adoptions still outnumber animal shelters, with the American Pet Products Association reporting that like 35% of dogs are purchased from breeders, while 23% of dogs are obtained from an animal shelter or humane society. So while it's so important that prospective dog owners choose to adopt, not shop, and get these dogs out of shelters, it's also important to improve the living conditions and treatments of these poor animals while they are there. So seeing all of this firsthand, Jacqui, while you traveled across the country visiting these shelters, were there any things that really stood out to you about the canine condition or things that surprised you most?
Yes. The one thing is that although we are the United States of America, we are extremely divided on the rules, regulations, and what's okay and not okay in different parts of the country. So I thought I was going in and with a blanket solution of like, hey, what's everyone doing to help these shelters and these animals? And it has to be different. It depends, where you live. Is it a more remote area? Is it a city? What is the funding like? What is the community like? Does the community have even enough resources and funding to help their humans, let alone, the animals? So it's hard, and you really have to go to each community and say, how can we help you? What are your communities or your cities needs? And it's really important for people to go to their city council meetings. I know that sounds so silly, But if we are involved in our city council meetings, we can tell our city councils, this is what we need. Hey, take a look at our local shelter. This is where we're suffering or needing help. And your voice matters. Every individual, wherever you live, your voice really does matter. You just have to use it.
Wow. It's amazing that your work is really aiming to like open hearts and minds to get people to want to get involved. So thanks for all the shout outs. As a pet owner, I can tell you that anytime I've lost a pet and I've had to go to a shelter, I am scared. I know it breaks my heart just as it did when you first, started this journey. Can you just talk a little bit about your approach and specifically highlighting solutions so that, rather than just highlighting the negative, and how just focusing on the positive has moved the needle for the canine condition?
Yes, and that was my intention. I wanted to make a documentary series that people wouldn't have to always get Kleenex or say, oh, I can't watch this. It's too hard for me to watch this, which a lot of these animal welfare documentaries and shows can be like. And I don't also want to sugarcoat it and tell you that it's all pretty and fluffy and it's, always a smile on your face. But it's more about, hey, it's worth me just having a tiny uncomfortable moment to make a positive impact in the long run, right? So sometimes I just say, if you can't go into a shelter, connect with a rescue organization that has volunteers that do go to shelters, and then maybe you can be on the other end. You don't have to visit the actual shelter, but you can bring any food, blankets, treats, leashes, collars, even used things that they can use for the dogs they're pulling from the shelter. You can share their dogs on your social media pages, which is really easy because then they get exposed to more eyes and ears that may be looking for that specific animal. And if you do have it in you to visit a shelter, you can literally, without even being a registered volunteer, go with your iPhone or your Samsung, whatever you use, I don't even know, your mobile phone, and videotape the dogs and show them on your own social media and say, hey, you can find this doggy at blah, blah, blah shelter. And you can see their kennel card with the number, and people will know where and how to find that specific animal.
Well, I know it's obviously easier for those who aren't pet parents to remain in the dark about the state of our animal shelters, but for these individuals or those who just aren't ready for the full-time commitment of adoption, what are some ways that people can help their local shelter or nonprofit animal rescue organizations outside of physically going there and filming the dogs and making this somewhat of a task, if you will? Are there any other recommendations you have?
I would say the two most important ones, if you're in a position to donate, and I really want to stress that donations could be as little as $5. Because imagine if everyone on your block gave $5 to your local shelter and there's 30 homes, you know what I mean? That is a lot of money. That buys a lot of dog food because the shelters also get it at a discounted price. So you're talking about many, many pounds of dog food that could be purchased for the shelter. So those small donations, or you could do like a donation pool at work. Maybe if you work in an office environment and you could do, hey guys, I'm going to put out a jar by Friday. Let's see how much money you guys can, if you guys have change from, your coffee or your weekly purchase of whatever, throw it in the jar. Let's see. And then donate that to your local shelter or to a nonprofit organization that's foster based, where, if you follow anyone on social media, we are constantly recommending organizations that adopt out dogs because we like to vet them around the country and let you know, hey, they really are doing the good work and your money is going where they say it's going. So we're another resource at the Canine Condition where people can ask and say, hey, should I be supporting this? Is this a good one? Or are they doing the work? And we can tell you.
That's beautiful. For anybody that's on the fence, I'm also blown away by how our animals seem to rescue us and not the other way around. And I know that your docuseries features some human transformations. Can you share anything that you witnessed during the show that really warmed your heart about human transformations?
Oh gosh, and it's so moving. It's so touching. There's a lovely lady who I met. She lived in New Jersey. Her husband was working in Georgia, and he was training at a gym, and unfortunately, he was killed. It was a very tragic accident. In that time, one of the families that used to go to this gym and be trained by him found a dog, and he was a little pit bull, mini kind of pit bull, blue nose, beautiful type dog. And he had heartworm. He needed to be neutered, all this stuff. I just happened to come across her because it was the town I had been in to film. And I said, let me sponsor that dog. Let's heal him from heartworm. Let's neuter him. Let's do his vetting. And I just did that out of pocket. I was not a foundation at the time. And the man's wife flew down, obviously for the services, for everything. It was and she said, I want to adopt that dog because he knew about the dog and he loved the dog, and they found a bond. And it was like an extension of having a piece of him where he was and she took Bojo back to New Jersey, and he's a beautiful dog. And I love this lady, Sharon. She's wonderful. And it just meant a lot to me. Dogs really do heal hearts. They help you get through tough times. And I saw a lot of that on the journey.
Such a beautiful story. Now we have less than a minute left. Let's talk about your foundation. I understand that today marks an anniversary for you. So after a decade of diving deep into this subject and witnessing many organizations firsthand, where does your nonprofit fit into the bigger picture?
So after having done the documentary, I realized that one of the number one ways to find a solution to the overpopulation of neglected, abandoned dogs, or to prevent more of that abandonment, is to spay and neuter your pets. To keep them vaccinated and microchipped so that if they get lost, it's easy to scan them and be registered to their owner so that you know where to take them home. And so my foundation focuses on raising funds and paying for the spay, neuter, vaccinations, and microchips for family-owned pets. Anyone who can't afford it or needs some and not all the assistance, you are welcome. We will say yes. We will make it happen no matter where you are in the United States. We'll find a vet near that family's home, or we have clinic days where we do 35 to 40 pets at a time, and we get it done. I think it's really important because we're preventing thousands upon thousands of litters that people don't want, sometimes accidental litters, or can't afford it. They do want their pets spayed and neutered. So we're trying to just provide more resources and access to that. So that's what we're about now.
I love it. Well, we are at the end of this interview officially. Thank you so much for coming on, Jacqui. And I truly admire what you're doing. I know Anna does too. We're both in awe because offering solutions like spaying and neutering and acting preventatively and getting ahead of the problem like your organization does is extremely important. And I know that due to the overpopulation of shelters each year, approximately 950,000 shelter animals are euthanized, 390,000 of them being dogs. And that's where my heart shambles into a million pieces. So you're really doing great work from within with your foundation and continuing to educate people with the help of your new docuseries. Thank you so much for coming on. And Anna, thank you so much for bringing her to the show.
Yeah, thank you for following your heart, Jacqui. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for everything. And to everyone out there, go find a soul that you can help out there of the canine condition.
That was Discover Your Potential segment brought to you by Smart Pet Talk, and that was the incredible Jacqui Piñol. Definitely be sure to tune in to every episode on her docuseries. You don't want to miss it. It's extremely, extremely touching. Check her foundation out at thecaninecondition.org and on the gram at the Canine Condition. And you can also check her out personally on the gram at Jacqui Piñol. And of course, you can see more of Anna at discoveryourpotentialshow.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Your Home TV with Kathy Ireland and their channel partners. Head to yourhometv.com for free, family-friendly programming, streaming 24/7.
Do you have the dream of starting and owning your own business or know of someone who does? If so, check out Your Home Business program, where they inspire, equip, and encourage those who dream of owning and operating their own business. Check out Your Home Business on yourhometv.com.
Tune in to A Moment of Zen, Saturday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to talk to you about Bryan Kohberger. He is the defendant in the Idaho University student killings case. And recently, the prosecution and the defense have come to an agreement that the trial will take place, not this year, but in June of 2025. There's been a lot of motion practice in this case where the defense is trying to exclude certain pieces of evidence, attacking the DNA evidence that linked Bryan Kohberger to this case, to the crimes. and the allegations against him in this case. But there's also some news based on a journalist releasing a book. The journalist's name is Howard Bloom. He released a book called When the Night Comes Falling, a Requiem for the Idaho Student Murders. And in that book, he really summarizes all the investigation he's done as a journalist into this case. And he has a theory. He has a theory that Bryan Kohberger allegedly knew exactly who he was targeting, and that would have been Madison Mogen, one of the young women who tragically lost their life in this incident. And why does he say that? Well, he thinks that Bryan Kohberger went straight to her room and likely knew who he was targeting and who he wanted to go kill first, allegedly. And he bypassed these other rooms where there were other individuals in those rooms, and he went straight to Madison, aka Maddie Mogen's room in order to find her. And that's the allegations or the reporting by this individual in his book. This is Howard Bloom's book. And whether that is the case, we will have to wait and see what evidence the prosecution is going to be bringing forward in this case. Of course, we know that Bryan Kohberger was arrested after there was a DNA hit with his familial DNA, and that of a DNA sample that was collected off a knife sheath that was found at the scene of the crime. And that's how prosecutors and law enforcement linked Bryan Kohberger with the deaths of these four individuals that he is charged with now in an indictment for murder. And this book that was released has this theory, and of course we'll have to wait and see how the prosecution ends up putting forth their case. The defense really being aggressive in trying to knock out some of the evidence that they believe the prosecution is going to be relying on at trial, and that would be the DNA evidence and also some cell phone site data evidence. We're going to have to wait and see. The trial is set now for June of 2025. I imagine there's going to be more motion practice from the defense that the prosecution is going to have to answer with oppositions to make sure that they have a case that's going to come in front of that jury with all the evidence intact and nothing precluded or suppressed, and that's what the defense wants. But go check out that book. I think it's probably an interesting one, and of course it has this theory that Bryan Kohberger knew exactly who he was going for first when he entered the house, according to the allegations in the indictment against him by the prosecution. I'm Imran Ansari, and you are watching A Moment of Zen, and this is a little legal update, so keep watching, keep listening, take care.
A Moment of Zen is sponsored by FinTech TV.
FinTech TV, the newest streaming channel focused exclusively on the business of blockchain, digital assets, and sustainability. Broadcasting from our studio on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange with daily reports from NASDAQ, global expansion, and 24/7 coverage. Become part of the launch. Head to fintech.tv/invest. Fintech.tv/invest.
Tune in to A Moment of Zen, Saturday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York.
Well, that's a wrap, my dear friends. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. Or you could head to 710WOR.iHeart.com/A Moment of Zen. Also remember that we're live on Traverse TV Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern, YouTube Sundays at 2 p.m. And all episodes of A Moment of Zen are on Your Home TV and Kathy Ireland worldwide, and they stream 24/7. You can head directly to our channel at mox.yourhometv.com. Thank you for listening to us. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thanks again to all of our sponsors that continue to make this show possible. And remember that happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it.